Hey, what's up? Y'all hear me? Is this shit on? Yo, what's up? I'm Jeff Richardson from Everything is Awesome. I read chapters from my book, and this will be chapter 22. Book 3, chapter 22. Joran. He was her prisoner, a splendid parrot in a gilded cage. His intellect was wasted here, his fire for life sputtering in its brazier. Every day he awoke, plagued by nightmares. Every night he slumped into bed exhausted, defeated by his nights in the clutches of this heartless woman. I say night in the same sentence. Every night he slumped into bed exhausted, defeated by the hours in the clutches of this heartless woman. We'll figure that one out. How had he ever loved her? What madness had made him break his vows? She was as dark as any sorcerer, cruel as any torturer. When he thought about her crimes, just the ones he knew about, he shuddered. Soon she would drag him into her mad intrigues. Soon he would be her pawn in the game of houses. She was sending him to Calustria. He'd had to wait while they prepared for his departure. The return of the noble former guardsman would be noted by those who remembered his exploits in the war and occupation. He'd been well coached on how to impress and inspire the courtly citizens of the capital city. Word of his bravery had been sprinkled around among the cognoscenti. He would be a cause célèbre among those with inside knowledge. He would be a preening parrot in a traveling circus. His words would be enjoyed, but barely listened to. He would be a spy operating in plain sight. And he would recover the statue for the one woman in the galaxy who should never, under any circumstances, get her hands on an object of immeasurable power. My lord, the Avandi wishes to speak with you. Joran sighed. Every servant in the palace annoyed him in slightly different ways. Mostly their meekness. Unlike him, they had resigned themselves to lives of quiet desperation. Life on the frontier star was difficult for anyone without at least 1,000,000 connels, but for these unfortunate souls it was even worse. At any moment, they could be fired, forced to live in the outside world with no means of support. Deprivation and death were the inevitable result. She's welcome to come here. The weather is quite nice today. The servant waited a beat, as if preparing to laugh at Joran's jest. It was no jest. My apologies, my lord. It is best not to. Joran was already up and moving, lashing on the ceremonial sword belt he was forced to wear while in her lady's service. You're right. I'm simply dying to be in her presence. She is such a delight. He didn't know why he tried with these people. They were all too terrified to play along. Joran, please, come here. She'd adopted an air of cultured civility. A few reporters were present, so of course she was on her best behavior. It was some sort of promotional photo op. She was standing before the huge bay windows, positioned next to a giant brass telescope, clad in a blousy shirt and jodhpurs, Smart leather boots, and a jaunty cap perched atop piles and piles of bright red hair. She was very fond of wigs. It was said that she owned hundreds. It was even said that the hair had been harvested from her many victims. Leaning on the desk a few yards away was her highest ranking officer, the disgusting General Ethan Marston. He'd been just a boy when Joran had lived here, a sniveling bastard of a boy. Once Joran had caught the little master Once Joran had caught the little monster terrorizing a cat. Joran had given him the beating of his young life and brought the poor injured creature to Lizette, who'd cared for it briefly before handing it off to one of the servants. Marston had never forgiven Joran. Joran adopted an air of charming interest in the whole scene. He looked over at Marston and dipped his brow. Marston? Marston stiffened, a look of disdain crossing and then leaving his face.
Barlow, I trust you are well.
Indeed. Joran marched onto the dais and knelt before the Avandi. She quickly gestured for him to stand beside her. She turned, arm wrapped in his, and posed for the cameras. It was amazing how natural and effortless she seemed in pictures, given how calculated she was in person. Joran, please, you needn't stand on ceremony with me. She laughed coquettishly. Gods, she was a performer. If only she'd gone into acting instead of politics, she might have killed fewer people. For a moment, Joran pondered the rumors he had heard of disappeared opponents and political extortions.
My lady, I am too used to serving other more formal men. Serving you this past week has been a special treat.
She laughed again and turned to spin the dials of the scope. Joran studied her movements, trying to guess what this display was all about. As she tilted the scope's digital screen to face Joran, the vast window shutters fork. As she tilted the scope's digital screen to face Joran, the vast window shutters spread open to reveal the blackness of space beyond the station's flickering shield. And there, hanging just above the artificial atmosphere, was a massive vessel, as terrifying as it was beautiful. Smaller ships darted in and out of it, clearly serving as a military escort. Was this the ship that would take him to Calustria? Joran, I wanted you to see the ship you'd be traveling in. Isn't it lovely? Joran smiled thinly.
Yes, my lady. Very impressive.
Marston, tell Mr. Barlow what you told me. The general stood up to his full height, around 6'2", 6'4" in boots. He drew in a long, slightly bored, deep breath.
The daughters have taken the...
He paused, remembering the mics and cameras.
Object. We believe that they have taken it to their one of many fortresses on Calustria, but we can't be certain as to which one. The priestess, Lady Stargazer, has been sighted in the capital, but spends most of her time within the central temple.
He leaned back against the desk.
The other forces seeking the object have also been noted, traveling in and around the city.
Avandi Marshal waved to the servants, who promptly removed the reporters, all of whom feigned disappointment at the interruption. Most were probably happy to have escaped the meeting without incident. The trio moved to a brand new set of couches in the antechamber. They still had the smooth, softly subtle smells of off-world manufacture. The Avandi spoke, stopping periodically to eat some small red grapes. Joran, General Marston tells me that the capital is heating up. The intrigues of the 13 are becoming quite bloody. He could see a smile forcing its way onto her lips. Gods, she seemed to enjoy violence. At a distance, at least. Marston continued his report.
The arrival of the object has generated a flurry of maneuvers. House Delgore has moved to consolidate their power, neutralizing the heads of 4 lesser fiefdoms.
Gosh darn it, I'm going to repeat that.
House Delcor has moved to consolidate their power, neutralizing the heads of 4 lesser fiefdoms. The aftermath has been dramatic. The other houses can only speculate as to why, which has led to a marked jump in espionage activity. Our friends in the cult of Duran have been quite busy of late.
Friends. How like Marston to call the bloodthirstiest assassins in the galaxy friends. Joran doubted if the cult considered them as such, but it made sense that Marston had won a place at the table with such intimate access to the agents of Shadow. Lizette waved off the details. Yes, yes. What I want is to win this battle and the war. The houses have been fighting for 20 years to replace the king, and I intend to be among those who anoint his successor. Capturing the object is the first step. You will be my agent in this matter. Deviate from my instructions, Joran. She walked her elegantly painted fingernails along his inner thigh. And there will be consequences, not least of which will be the punishment of the woman you previously served. Marston pointed to the display of his personal device. The image was of a live feed featuring Ayanna standing on a balcony, watching the dual sunset behind the humble spires of the rebuilt capital. Joran's blood boiled. His muscles flexed involuntarily. He resisted the urge to draw his ridiculous ceremonial sword and plunge it into her abdomen. It wasn't easy.
Yes, my lady, I will not disappoint you. You have my word.
Years of service to the king and queen had taught him well. He knew the ways of appearing cowed. He'd had to do it quite a bit throughout his life. Lizette touched his face. He could smell her perfume, the same scent that had drawn him to her on the day he'd first arrived, at the sight of a lifetime of shame. Gods, but she was beautiful. He hated himself for loving her. She would look better dead. Perhaps one day he would have the pleasure of making that happen. You've always been so good to me, Joran Barlow. Then she laughed. He wished he never had to hear that sound ever again. Unfortunately, he knew for certain that he would. That laugh, that faking laugh, that cruel, vicious viper's laugh had haunted him and would haunt him every night of his life until he was no more. Oh shit. Sorry, I'm just doing a little check here. Where should I put the next chapter? I'll just keep it this way, but I might change these orders. I might come back to this. You never know. Oh, I should check to see how much time I have. Okay, maybe I should stop. How long is this one? Oh, this one's real long. Yeah, I'll stop and I'll get at you next time. Email everythingisawesomepodcast@gmail.com. What else? EIA podcast on Twitter @EIA podcast. I have so much shit, y'all. Just check the Everything is Awesome website, awesomepod.squarespace.com. Not all of it is even on there. I got so much going on. You could probably type Jeff Richardson into your podcatcher of choice and find this guy. I don't know. I got like 500 episodes of shit. So, yeah. Tell me what you think of this damn book. Tell me what you think of me as a person. I don't know. We could talk about your work. We could talk about Emily Dickinson if you want. Whatever. I'm just down to kick it with y'all about writing and just like vibe with you, man. So hit me with those emails, the tweets. I'll stop moving my hands and I'll get at you next time with more from Ayana Stargazer. Peace.